Dear. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of November 24th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
So you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, a few announcements before we get started. Just a reminder again, city offices will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday, Thursday and Friday, 27th and 28th. The library will be closing at 4 p.m. on the 26th and also closed the 27th and 28th. Solid waste holiday schedule, no garbage on the 27th or the 28th, Thursday and Friday. Thursday customers, Wednesday, so that's the one to remember. Your pickup is going to be on Wednesday, the 26th for Thursday customers. Friday customers will be picked up on Monday, the 1st of December, and waste management follows our schedule. Council had asked a question about council vacancy appointment process. So Ms. Swetnam just sent out a really nice memo to council about 30 seconds ago. But I'll go it rather than me try to go through. Well, I'll go through the qualifications because I always joke about the qualifications. But 18, U.S. citizen, registered voter in the jurisdictions, and have been a resident of the city for at least 1 year before election or appointment. And additionally, you need to be in the ward if it's for the ward position. As we know, there'll be a vacancy coming up. So Ms. Swetnam, with that, anything to add to that?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question, and I'm happy to dig in if there are components of what's mentioned in the memo that council would like more information on. But essentially, the city council has 90 days from the date of vacancy to select a qualified alternative. And there's no specific procedure that state law dictates about how that should happen, other than that it has to happen within that time period. So what's happened in the past here and at other jurisdictions is there's been an advertisement notifying the public that there's a vacancy. Generally, people then have an opportunity to present qualifications. There's an interview process. Usually that happens in open session. Council can talk about potential candidates in executive session, but then the final selection and appointment needs to happen in open session. And then that individual would be sworn in. There was a question last time about whether a special election has to happen after the appointment is made. And I did go through and read that entire chapter of the revised Code of Washington. And there is a requirement that at the next election where those positions would otherwise be filled, there be an election. So that does need to happen. And then whoever's elected through that process fills the vacancy for the remainder of the term of the original person who is vacated. Two points I wanted to raise was that one, council can start that selection process before the actual vacancy occurs, and that if that process happens before the vacancy occurs, the outgoing member of the legislative body can actually participate in that process. So, and I'm happy to look into any parts of that in more detail if that's helpful. So,
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
The outgoing member cannot participate in the final selection of the person to fill the vacancy, though, right?
My understanding from looking at the statute is that if that selection happens while that member is still on council, they can.
Okay. All right. Well, that won't happen anyway, but
probably not, but just in case. So
can you provide with precision when that election would take place?
Yeah, what the statute says is that it would be at the next election where council would otherwise be elected. So I haven't looked into that issue to say whether that would be like the next general election, or I believe what happened last time was the city had a special election. I know there's no cost consideration for that. So I'm happy to dig into that question a little bit more, what that election would be.
My understanding was the next general election, but I think we definitely wanted clarity on that. So we
Sure.
do need to know that.
Yeah, good
specifically.
question.
Right, thank you for, and that will create another vacancy, as a number of us, I think, started out on the planning commission volunteering for the city of Anacortes, and there'll be a vacancy coming up, so at least one vacancy coming up. So if you're interested, if you're thinking about ways to serve the city, look for that announcement coming up. And potentially, I said at least one, but it's likely going to be three. All right, so consider that opportunity to serve our wonderful city. Okay, next up is Planning Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The planning committee met at 5 p.m. today. Council members Cleland McGrath, Walters, and myself, and planning director John Coleman and planning manager Libby Grage. And what we talked about are some of the questions that came up last week regarding the development regulations and the comp plan. The comp plan, there really weren't questions actually, but the development regulations, there have been a few, and actually Mr. Walters had made a few comments and questions about the comp plan. So all of those things will be discussed and as part of tonight's agenda. Thanks.
Great. Any questions there? All right, Parks and Recreation
Mayor
Committee.
Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
Thank you. Parks met on the 20th. Mr. McDougall and I joined multiple members of the staff for a very productive and very brief meeting. We went over several things that are going to be brought back to council in January. So as a heads up, the Forest Board has approved the forest plan. That's something that will come back to council in January. We did a quick review over the current place that cemetery service fees are at and how the department keeps losing money on services provided. So we're not getting enough back from the public to cover our costs. So that will be something else that comes back to council in January. So figuring out how to get to a place where most of the costs that the city is incurring are recouped, and taking that in through not a one-time increase, but either a 3-year or 4-year incremental plan. We touched on the school resource officer and what it would take to get that person to get to spend time in the community forest lands in our public wooded areas over the summer. It's been something that's happened intermittently over the last several years. And the struggle with that specific position is that once that school resource officer gets put out in the forest lands, it's not a position that can get backfilled by anyone else on the public safety team. So there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen with Parks and Rec and of course, Police Department. The position usually works Thursday through Sunday, and it would be a position that would be out in our forest lands from mid to late June until school starts back up, probably late August, early September. So conversations that will continue to be had. And then we did get an update on the Meals on Wheels program. So it was something that we had heard about, like right when Skagit County decided to pull back on the funding on it. Residents and customers of Meals on Wheels are still getting food through the end of June, and the county is working on next steps. There'll be a request for proposals put out to different nonprofits in the area. So it's still a viable program for at least the next 6 calendar months. And one of the things that was interesting that was brought up, Skagit County is only one of 4 counties within the entire state that actually offers this program. Most of the time, Meals on Wheels is being offered through other nonprofit providers. So lots of things in the works and lots of things to keep our eyes out for. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions for Parks and Rec Committee? All right, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Mr. Walters.
The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met last week. It was the second of our meetings to review this year's allocations of lodging tax dollars. We received a presentation from the Chamber's Jessica Kaiser about their advertising program and the Visitors Information Center. And the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee did make some recommendations unanimously that'll be coming forward to the city council in the next couple of weeks. Notably, they recommended a total allocation in about the same amount as last year. I think there was only maybe $1,000 difference. There's a little bit of a mix, different recommendations for different programs, but the total amount varied very little from last year. And they recommended funding from our fund balance of the design work for the Port City Event Center.
Any questions? Other announcements or committee reports?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
On last Wednesday night, I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to Director Coleman. We had Skyline Homeowners Association. I go out there about once a quarter to kind of answer any questions and meet with them. And Director Coleman was grateful enough to come out and gave a presentation on the comp plan and then fielded questions for about 45 minutes from a very packed beach club. So I just appreciate that. So thank you.
Other announcements or committee reports? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is public comment. This opportunity to enter a member of the public that wishes to address the city council on anything that's not on our agenda. And I didn't have anybody signed up, but I'll pause here to see if last minute takers and check online. Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda, item 5A through C. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. McDougall.
move approval of consent agenda items A through C.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDougall, a second by Ms. Hubick to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to item 6, other business. First up is 6A. This is a contract modification, city facilities, janitorial services. This is a discussion item with possible action. Mr. Lee will present. Mr. Lee, when you're ready.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council, and those in attendance. Tonight, I bring before you a contract modification in the amount of $140,252.60 with BE Enterprises. This contract includes a variety of janitorial services for 6 city facilities. The main beneficiaries are City Hall, the Senior Center, and the library. And this model will extend those services into 2026 without a rate increase. City staff have compared alternative options and believe this to be the most cost-effective option. And we've utilized these rates for several years without an increase and do not expect to find lower rates from any new providers. So that's all I have, and I'm here to answer any other questions.
Questions?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I think just to put a very fine point on it, this is not just a modification of the contract. It extends it for another year. It's paying for another year of service.
Yeah.
Yeah. I move approval of the contract as presented.
Second.
All right, a motion and a motion by Mr. Walters and a second by, I'll go with Mr. Fantini to approve the contract 2503013 FAC 001 as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franczak, vote please.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up 6B, contract award combined sewer overflow pump station project, and also Mr. Lee.
Still here. All right. Tonight, I also bring you a contract in the amount of $3,414,144 with Strider Construction for the construction of the combined sewer overflow pump station, also known as the CSO pump station at the wastewater treatment plant. And so during heavy rain events, the city has experienced sanitary sewer overflow events that occur when the plant's intake capacity is exceeded. These events violate the city's NPDES permit conditions and are a major health hazard. So the construction of the CSO pump station will make it so that we're able to convey those influent flows during the heavy rain events, if necessary, and prevent any major overflowing along our trunk line. And it also keeps us in compliance with the NPDES permit. And this project will be funded by an interfund loan that council approved back on October 13th. And the low bidder also came in, Strider Construction came in significantly under our original estimate. So I'm available for any questions, any follow-ups.
Questions?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
We've talked about this project a couple of times. It came in under the construction estimate. We had a number of bidders, which was good to see. I move approval of the contract as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Mr. Young to approve the contract 21025 SEW 003 with Strider Construction, 3,414,144. Any additional discussion? Ms. Franciac, vote please.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young. Yes. Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next up, 6C, Resolution 3190, rejecting all bids for the unit price fiber general contractor services. Discussion item, possible action, and Ms. Shu, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, the audience. Tonight, asking that you pass Resolution 3190, which will reject all the bids for a unit priced fiber general services contract. We're asking you to do that to allow us to have an accurate reflection of the quantities of bid units that would allow us to be able to have a more full understanding of what an actual call out event would be. This will become basically an emergency call out list for the fiber team in the event of an aerial issue with our fiber line. By looking just at one unit item, each price, that doesn't give us a good example of what it would take for us to actually call a developer, to call a contractor back to be able to assist us. So we want to put in like 500 feet or 200 splices to be able to have a better understanding of what the actual costs could be. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, council questions. Mr. Young,
Short of, unless there's, did you have any questions, Mr. McDougall? Okay, I move that resolution 3190 be adopted to reject all bids received on November 13th, 2025 for the unit price fiber general contractor services 2025-2028, number 25-216-FBR-001.
Second.
motion by Mr. Young and a second by Mr. Fantini to approve resolution 3190. Additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And 6D. All right, we're already here. Mr. Coleman, you're not at the podium. No, kidding. Ordinance 5013, 2025 comprehensive plan update. This is a discussion item only and open for public comment. All right, Mr. Coleman, when you're ready.
All right. Good evening, council, mayor, members of the public. I'm John Coleman, Director of Planning, Community and Economic Development. So I think we all know where we're at on these items, but as a refresh, we've been discussing the draft comprehensive plan for the past several weeks at the city council. And we've also been reviewing the draft development regulations, which are going hand in hand with this comprehensive plan. The first agenda item today is to discuss the comprehensive plan, and then we can move into the development regulations, although I suspect we'll probably blend the two a little. I apologize. That's just the nature of this beast. And I think that's acceptable because there's not going to be any action today. So a little bit about the process of what we're hoping to do is We want to go over some of the questions that the council had had at previous meetings and clarify some of those. And we have some information to present to you, including what I've passed out to the council already. We have our consultants online and available for questions. We also, since we're not asking for any action here, what we're hoping to achieve is to go through all of your questions on both the development regulations and the comp plan. And if there's any changes that you want to have, please get those to us at the end of this discussion. And we're going to then publish all of your requested changes on Wednesday. So tomorrow we will be working desperately hard to get it all put together because it will be available Wednesday. So that will be the beginning of a public comment period on those items that are going to be potentially changed. So people have the ability to comment on the things that are different than what was the original draft that was out to the public. The development regulations were published in September and the comp plan was originally published in July. We'll also be noticing in that list of changes is the planning commission changes that they had made in their recommendation. So just a lot of opportunity for people to comment on things that have changed since it was originally put out. That comment period will close on December 11th. That's a Thursday. And so then staff will work very hard to get any public comments to you on Friday. And then that's the 12th. Then we're hoping the council can consider and act on the development regulations and the comprehensive plan on their Monday, December 15th meeting. That is the last meeting of the year where you consider action. We get together on the 22nd for the council does, but we generally just pay bills on that day. So that's not really a day that we were planning we didn't want to make you get into a whole discussion. So we're hoping to have the changes adopted on December 15th, if possible, but it's up to the council, of course. So that's the process that we're going through. Are there any questions on that before I just launch into the changes clarification on information? I think we'll start with the clarification of the things that we've already discussed at previous meetings, and then continue on to any comments and changes that the council want to make. So let's start with the comprehensive plan. Is this the PowerPoint here? We're going to open a PowerPoint. So to the best of staff's recollection, we don't recall any questions outstanding from our discussion of the comprehensive plan. No, I remember from last week, there was a lot of questions about the development regulations, and we've got information about that. But were there any outstanding comprehensive plan items that the council wanted to discuss? And I know that Councilmember Walters does. Do you want to get into the comp plan stuff first, or do you want to wait till we talk about the development regulations?
Mr. Walters?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to clarify whether we had addressed policy T 1.9D with respect to West 2nd Street. We talked about this. I thought we had general agreement up here. Are we making an edit there?
Yes. So thank you for pointing that out. So policy T, there was some discussion 2 or 3 weeks ago at council about whether or not West 2nd Street would be like an alternate arterial route should there be a problem on Oaks Avenue. And I believe we came to the conclusion that that's not the intent, that it would become a full-on arterial, but perhaps our consultant Chris is on, maybe he can.
Yeah, did you want to introduce the consultant team since they've,
Yeah, so Chris Como is our transportation consultant with Transpo. I know that John Phillips with Parametrics is here. He's did the science for and large parts of the climate element. I believe we have Katie Saunders, who also with Makers, who is also worked on the climate element. And I can't see who's up there, but I believe it's probably going to be Bob Bengford from Makers, as well as Marcus Johnson from Makers.
yeah, that's who I've got on the panelist list.
So this is a question for Chris. Did we make any actual text changes to the policy T 1.19, was it?
I think the question was, what was the purpose of improving it to arterial standards? It's clearly a residential street, and there was concern that it would potentially draw traffic off of Highway 20, and certainly that isn't, I think, what people really wanted. And it was talked originally about a second opportunity for emergency management access or emergency response access. I think this is a remnant of a former policy, and nothing was simply done to it. My recommendation is to simply strike it from the overall policy. It's kind of embedded in a bunch of things that have to do with DOT, but I really don't think that the intent was to have it carry more traffic. And if you try to use it for emergency response purposes, I mean, if it's a really narrow residential street, that's just not going to work very well.
I think that was the conclusion that we reached a couple weeks ago when we talked about it. So I just wanted to make sure that we were actually.
So in the
making that.
changes, we will strike, it's T.19, is that what I understand?
T.19 D.
All right, we'll do that. And
I had a couple of other, I had a whole bunch of commas and apostrophes, but I sent those to Libby. I had a couple of other substantive edits. One was land use policy 4.6, which says that we will try to reduce wildfire risk in wildland urban interface areas. And I suggest we want to reduce wildfire risk everywhere. The wildfire urban interface code as a suggestion in the next sentence I would leave alone and spell out, but I don't think we want to reduce wildfire risk only in the WUI areas, but throughout the entire city, throughout the entire forest lands. I guess I would ask unanimous consent to make that change.
I don't see any objection there.
And then scrolling through my notes, there was also an edit to another transportation policy. I don't know if I'll be able to find the number really quickly here, but there is a policy that says that we should pursue electric vehicle charging stations in the city. That's an existing policy. And the proposed edit was call other cities and see if we want to pursue electric vehicle charging stations. I think we're okay with the existing policy and should decline that edit.
I'm seeing general consent with the council.
yeah, that's 4.11.
Yeah, I couldn't find it really
Yeah,
quickly.
T 4.11. And we've noted the change.
And then I guess, I might find a couple others here in a minute, but I wondered if we could discuss a little bit the level of service table in the capital facilities plan element. There are a number of levels of service that are in there. I could try to find all page number. Here it is. Page 99 of volume 1. So one thing is that under transportation, it says level of service C for city street corridors, but in the transportation element, it talks about level of service C for city street corridors that touch arterials. It's phrased slightly differently. So I thought that we should just harmonize those two sections. Does that ring a bell?
Could you refer me to the page, the agenda packet page?
Page 99 in volume 1, which is burnt into the document. I don't know. I don't open the entire agenda packet as a single file, so I don't know what page that would be.
Anybody has that one, Ms.
Yeah.
Hubick?
Thank you. It is page 208 of 1255. The table number is table CF-1.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. So what I would say is it is critical to not change the level of service D for the DOT state routes. That's a requirement from both the Skagit Council of Governments and DOT. And level of service C, I believe, was the general level of service adopted for corridors, but that has actually been changed to intersection only. The city is no longer using level of service for corridors because, well, it's a whole nother conversation. What it should read is LOSD for intersections.
Yeah, so I guess my only comment here at this point is just to harmonize it with the paragraph in the transportation element, which has a different description of those levels of service. Slightly
Yeah,
different.
I agree. I agree. And so that can easily be done.
No objection. Okay.
And then also in this table, we have police protection at 1.83 officers per 1,000, which is a change from 1.7. Is that simply modified to reflect our current staffing, or is it a best practice number? Is it authoritative from somewhere else? Do we know?
Do you recall that, Libby, with conversation with Dave? We'll look into that real quick. The police chief's not here right now.
But there was discussion on it.
Yeah, she's going to look into that. We'll come back to that one.
Okay. I had several other edits that we talked about in the planning committee that I am dissuaded from proposing. So I don't know that I have any other substantive items to talk about right now.
Yeah, I think what we talked about in policy EC22, we added new language and to an existing policy, and it just got so expensive that we're going to make EC22 into two separate policies because they're a little far ranging. So that's the nature of some of the changes that we discussed. One other thing, while we have Mr. Como here, he provided a couple of responses to some of the discussion that we had last week surrounding functional classification for Kansas Avenue. And the short answer to that is the city will be working to make Kansas Avenue a collector arterial. But right now, since it's not constructed, we can't have it functionally classified as an arterial under the federal classification system because it doesn't exist. It's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem. But Chris has identified Kansas Avenue Extension Project is on our TIP, our 2026 to 2031 TIP as project number 4. And that would connect it through partially through to Oaks Avenue. So we're working our way towards building that roadway, and then we can apply for the functional classification. So to show that that's what we want to do, we've added this proposed policy T.28, which is to work with SCOG and WashDOT to gain federal functional classification approval for Kansas Avenue as a collector arterial to SR 20 Oaks Avenue, which will allow the city to apply for state and federal transportation grants to fund future multimodal improvements along Kansas Avenue.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
I assume that addresses our concern from before, but is collector arterial the right term?
Yeah, so Chris and I have been emailing about this. In the functional classifications, there's major arterial and minor arterial and collector arterial. So there is a little bit of confusion. Chris, would you recommend that we call it a major arterial, a minor arterial, or a minor collector or major collector? I forget what the other names were. It was in that chart
Yeah.
that you emailed me.
Yeah, I don't have, so there's criteria that goes with this in terms of, whether it's a major collector or minor collector. And that's a particular criteria that is used in the DOT functional classification. And so it depends on volumes and things like that. And what I would say is leave it as collector arterial because that's very general. And then when you make the application with SCOG, and that's the process that you have to go through, that's when you can determine whether it'll be a major collector or a minor collector. It may fall into the major collector category just because it serves a large residential area. But I don't know that without seeing traffic counts and things like that.
Do we need to worry about having the word arterial in there? Because minor arterial is different than a minor collector.
So, as I explained in one of my emails, I'm just simply used to using the term collector arterial because I think it's very important to differentiate between a arterial street and a local access street, a residential street. And a lot of people seem to see the word collector, and when it's applied in a residential area, they assume it means local access street. So it can create some confusion. I think using the term collector arterial is very specific. It's telling everybody that it's going to be upgraded essentially from a local access street, and that's the intent. That's the way I would phrase it. It's totally up to the city.
All right.
I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. It looks like there's consent on this change.
Very
All right.
good. Thank you. Another topic that arose during conversation was sidewalk fee in lieu of construction. And so it seemed like a very reasonable thing that was missing. So while we do have some concerns about, we want to make sure that we don't do any, have any problems with double collecting in areas where they pay impact fees on an area and then pay in lieu. We want to make sure that we don't run into any problems there. But we did add a proposed policy T 1.27, which says explore and consider options for establishing a fee in lieu of construction program for sidewalks that would allow the city to complete sidewalk gaps. Seeing some nodding, so
Mr. Walters.
Importantly, I mean, it would allow the city to complete a gap, but not necessarily directly in front of the new construction that's occurring.
correct.
Right? I mean, the concept is we can't make you build a sidewalk across town, but we can make you build a sidewalk in front of your house. But if there is no other sidewalk nearby, what's the point of that? So we require a fee in lieu of the sidewalk construction and then go fill in the gap where it exists.
On an arterial, likely.
Is it always on an arterial?
Well, we'll have to design the program, but those would be the higher
Sure, that would be the
priority
higher, yeah.
areas.
But I could also conceive of other prioritization, like maybe a block away, there's just one spot that's
Yeah.
missing or something. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Looks like the rest of the council's good with it too.
Okay, so we found the section where the discussion of future needs about the Washington, about the police commissioners. And that is displayed on the screen.
Okay. Council, you read it?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
Just a question. So, and then, so when we're deciding like the 1.83 or the 1.7, that's a number that we come up with or a number that they're telling us we need to come up? Like, I guess, is that a recommendation or is that what it has to be?
This is what the police chief has provided us, saying, so based on the projected population to be roughly 23,000, a minimum of 8 officers will be needed. And then when you do the math, that equates to, 8 on top of on top of the 33. That equates to 1.3 officers. And right now we're at 1.7. And we knew we were low. That's why we passed the levy in the first place.
Okay. Miller?
Mr. Young?
Thank you. No, I mean, I really appreciate the question Mr. Fantini brought forward. At least from my perspective, I think that, our goal has been to make sure we have adequate staffing to serve the needs of the community, public service or, emergencies and stuff. But, again, I think that given the budget that we're in right now, that's a big concern of mine. And it pushes me to also think that we live in a reasonably safe area. And I think that sometimes when we're comparing ourselves to other cities, I think that we would have to stretch hard to find another city that's equally as safe and, sort of similar to Anacortes. And sometimes I think, those ratio numbers are suggestions of what would ideally be. But I think that when we look at it deeper, we will realize that in some cases, we may not need that because, again, we don't have the same issues as some other cities. So, but anyway, I know that this is a little bit different, but that's how I'm looking at when we start talking about approaches, when we start talking about what we want to invest in, when we talk about how we get there based upon what Anacortes is like. So, I do hear the point, and I just wanted to sort of reiterate that as part of the discussion. Thank you.
So I think to Mr. Fantini's point, it is up to council to determine what that number is. You have the recommended number from the police chief and there's obviously caveats in there. If you read it, it talks about if future development includes a big box retail, for example, there's more policing requirements. So.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is just because one, I am certainly not suggesting that we should be less safe or have less than we have right now. I just want to be very clear about that. But I look at numbers like Oak Harbor has a population of like 25,000 and they have 28 officers and that seems like I don't know, I'm wanting to understand more the jump from 1.7 to 1.83.
Well, all I can offer is when the city did the levy lift efforts, and what it says right here is that's when they determined that the 1.8 officers per 1,000 residents was the target that they were using for that effort. So when we passed the levy lid, they were shooting for 1.83.
So this essentially is just kind of truing up the comp plan to why we did the levy lid lift to the.
It appears so, yes.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
one of the conversations that was had in Public Safety Committee as we were talking about the levy lid lift was the disparity between the nationwide average of 2.3 and Washington state average, which has fluctuated between 1.4 and 1.36. So looking at what we've historically had and then trying to find a reasonable number to push towards. So it was a goal that was outlined when we were coming up with the number for what to ask for when the voters approved the levy lid lift. And so it's just being reiterated here is what my understanding is.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleo McGrath.
Yeah, I would second what Ms. Hubick just said. Also that kind of getting to the number we need was based on appropriate responses and staffing levels too. So more than just the ratio, but also when you're doing the scheduling and you're having an appropriate number of people on staff to respond to an issue. So that's a little background to it.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
So I think the answer to my initial question is we did just true it up to how many staff we currently have. And that makes sense on some level, except that if you add 1,000 people, we then need to add 1.83 additional staff. And we might not have the call volume or other metrics to match that at the time. However, the introduction to this table says that these standards are to guide the future delivery of community services and to provide a measure to evaluate the adequacy. And I don't know that there's any language elsewhere that says you must provide this level of police protection concurrent with development like there is for other levels of service. Can anyone address that point?
I believe that's an accurate statement. Like, we don't have concurrency review in our municipal code that says, with your development, you need to make sure that there's enough police officers, whereas you would with, sewer.
Yeah. So as a guide, I think it's useful and helpful. It's a rough guide. It's 1.83 per thousand. It's very imprecise, and maybe it makes more sense to be based on call volume or some of the other metrics that have been struck, like the average response time. But if it's just a rough guide, then I'm okay leaving it where it is. And I agree, 1.7 being well below the nationwide average is probably something we need to move away from.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall.
Just very quickly, if, that 1.7 number, like in 2045, if we were to hit that 1.7 number, it would be 6 officers in addition rather than 8.
You're writing a 10-year plan. So, so if there's no objection to the number, then we could probably lock that one.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
I appreciate all the background. Thank you.
So I may have misspoke on the concurrency issue. Libby's gonna.
Well, okay. Ms. Grange.
Yeah, so in our development regulations in Title 19, 1922 are our concurrency requirements for development, and police protection is listed as a concurrency facility and service. And so when we do look at development, that concurrency review would occur for police, along with fire, water, sewer, utilities.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
Well, then that changes my conclusion. I wonder if we shouldn't ratchet it back down then to 1.6, because it's a floor. It's not necessarily the number that we are going to actually employ. It's not a maximum. But I mean, when you talk about employing certain numbers of staff, I think we need a little bit more flexibility, because sometimes you can have not an increase in call volume. It doesn't make sense to add a staff member. Maybe it doesn't make sense to add one. Maybe it makes sense to wait for a couple of years and then add more than one, to constitute another shift. I don't know. If it's a concurrency requirement in the code, 2 ways to go about it. One, to adjust downward the level of service. Another is to change the code to not really require that at the time of development review.
Yeah, so what this is, what this discussion is saying is, between now and 2045, if we are growing by the estimated 5,000 people, then we would need to add 8 more officers. So in theory, we would incrementally be committing to adding an officer every 3-4 years in order to get to that number and keep up with growth. And I don't know if the city has traditionally hired every few years to address something like that.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
I'm kind of the mind to agree with Mr. Walters that I think having the flexibility to be able to go up is better than having no flexibility to go down. So, I mean, I'm certainly in favor of trying to get closer to that national average. I don't know, just given where we are, where our budget is right now, if that committing to that 1.83 is necessarily the best move.
Mayor Miller.
Was that Ms. Hubick? No. Oh, sorry. Oh,
I was just going to add that for the purposes of reviewing projects for concurrency, police protection is one of the items that doesn't require concurrency at the time that the project is ready for occupancy. In this case, concurrency is concurrent with development means that improvements or strategies are in place at the time of development, or that a financial commitment is in place to complete the improvements or strategies within 6 years. So there's some time built in there.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
Well, 6 years might be a large enough window. Where were you reading from?
Chapter 1922, concurrency, the definition 1922-020 defines concurrent with development.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Clellan McGrath.
The suggestion of the 1.83 came from our police chief, correct? I mean, I'm inclined to just leave it as is. Realistically, fire and police are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not quite the same as a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday position where you can add in one at a time. What we've seen with both of those departments, that if you want to add a position for response, it actually ends up being 2 or 3 people because of the scheduling challenges. So I'm inclined to just leave it as is. And I mean, in the past, we have not met our fire department expectations of ratio for quite a few years. So I think it's kind of, I don't think it changes much right now. And if that was coming from the police chief, I'm okay leaving it as is.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
Given the 6-year window and the probability that we rewrite the concurrency code to be more plain language by then, I think I'm also okay leaving it as is.
Okay, I've got a consensus of the majority, so leave the number as is. Good discussion. Okay, what else you got, Mr. Coleman, on the comp plan? I do have to make sure that any member of the public wants to comment on this.
So those are all of the comprehensive plan comments that we had prepared to discuss. We wanted, if there was any more council to discuss, we can continue those or move on to the public comment part.
Public council, any other public comment? Any member of the public want to weigh in on this one? Okay, so that moves us to 6E, the Developmental Regulations Amendment.
All right.
Also a discussion item, no action expected.
So at our last meeting, we talked about some transportation related items, some small duplex items, max unit size. We had a map and chart that was affected by some of that discussion, and tall building step backs and bonus incentives. So we're prepared to talk about those. We already talked about the Kansas Ave functional classifications related to sidewalks. That was a policy in the comp plan, so we'll move on from that one. Next one is the small duplex discussion. So maybe I can make this a little larger. So we did a couple of things. One, as requested by council, we in the table 19.42020, we created a new line, a new row in the table to specifically call out lot size for small duplex. Previously, it was in the regular duplex section, and it was and it said or, and you can see how that's scratched out down below, and we just created a separate line. And so that makes it a little easier for everybody to see that, the new minimum lot size in the R2 for a small duplex is 7,500, 6,000 in the R2A, 4,500 in the R3. There was also some discussion amongst council of making it 3,000 square feet. So we probably want to true that up in this discussion. And then in Old Town, 6,000 square feet. We also included a definition of small duplex in the definition for duplex. Just added that one line that's highlighted. And then we modified in the small duplex standards the zones that it's allowed, and clarified that it's 1,400 square feet gross floor area per unit. That was a discussion that the council had last week. Should it be 1,000? Should it be 1,400? Council settled on 1,400. So this is just showing it in the text of the document now. That does bring us back. If you look in the R3 zone for lot size for small duplex, we still have either 4,500 or 3,000. I think the council was leaning towards 3,000 last week, but I don't know.
Oh, I thought we settled on all those numbers, but if not, we might have to hit you up again, council, to settle that number. We don't have that.
Mayor Miller.
Miss Moulton.
Thank you. I think my recollection of the discussion is that we decided that the lot size and coverage would determine whether or not this would work at 3,000 square feet. Is that right? So my recollection is, oh, sorry.
In the zone, for example, there was, the minimum, the underlying lots are often 4,000 square feet, or is that what they would be? They'd be 3,000 square feet in that zone. So I think that was part of the discussion.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
I had suggested that maybe the underlying lot size was 3,000 square feet because it is that way in some zones, but I don't think it is in R3. I think it's bigger, which would lead me to think maybe 4,500 is fine.
All right, we will strike the 3,000 if that seems.
Objection? Any objection? Okay.
Remember to make that. We also revised this map, which we had used to show what where the areas are and where these new changes are. As a reminder, where it's where in the zone it says in bold, like up here at R2A, small duplex, triplex, townhome are bold. So those are new new allowances that would have been either conditional or possibly not allowed in the area before. And then this chart down here shows the small duplex size that we just talked about. And we'll strike that CC 3000 and put leave it at 4,500 in the R3. Oh, which is what we have, sorry. We also wanted to point out that the Planning Commission's recommendations were slightly different. They had recommended no small duplexes in the R2A and R3. But council discussed that last week and wanted to allow small duplexes in those areas. So that's for accounting purposes, originally in the original draft, we did propose it. Planning Commission said something otherwise, and then council on this particular issue went back to what we had originally recommended and then changed a lot size. So it's just a lot of moving parts. I just wanted to point that out for those following from home.
Almost as fun as the Zone 3A discussion.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right. And you probably also recall we had a lot of discussion and it was really more around confusion about what the requirement for 25 foot of the facade length actually means. So we clarified with the consultants that had written this previously, and they were able to explain it to us. And we asked them if, well, they offered and we accepted their offer for them to redraw drawings of what it looks like. So these are both options of when you take advantage of this bonus density. The step back needs to be 8 feet across 75%. So if they're only required to step back one floor, the top floor. So if they do that, they only need to step back 75% of it. And that's what you see on that image on the right. So that would be the minimum that they would be allowed to do. On the left, you see another option. If they're going to step it back, they need to step back at least 70% of the 75% of the facade, and that's what that looks like. Incidentally, you could step back the entire facade from after the first floor all the way up. We didn't draw that one in there, but the bare minimum is on the right, and a variation is on the left. So does that clarify what this issue in for the council now? I appreciate it. In this case, drawing is definitely worth 1,000 words. And then there was also some discussion around bonus incentives, and I kind of punted on that one and asked Libby to explain. And at the planning committee meeting, we discussed it with the committee members there. This question originally was brought up by Councilmember Moulton, and once we discussed it, there was no additional changes that were found to be necessary. But if you'd like us to clarify more, we can do so.
I'm not seeing any.
All right, well, thank you. So that's all that we had brought back to clarify with the council about the development regulations. Was there any other topics that the city council wanted to discuss about the development regulations before we wrap up.
Well, maybe before that, any member of the public want to comment on the development regulations at this point? Okay, council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
I just want to say, like I said, when we adopted the development regulations, when we did so in 2019, that this is not the only bite at the apple here. We can amend the comp plan and the development regulations every year, development regulations maybe multiple times a year if we want. And if we don't get something right, we should come back and make the change. We really didn't change the comp plan between 2016 and now, and probably not a best practice. But I think that we should encourage users of the document, whether that's the public, whether it's builders, whether it's neighborhoods, whether it's commenters, to provide comment going forward, not just in this process, but when they find an error next year. And we'll put it on the list and docket it in some future effort to revise the comp plan or the development regulations. We should keep them moving, keep them keep everybody on our toes, and make sure that we are willing to make changes where we find errors in the documents or opportunities for improvement.
I'm sure I said similar things in 2019, but it was probably more blunt. And it's like, we're not going to get this perfect. There will be some things that we'll need to look at. So again, same thing applies. All right. Anything else for the developmental regulations, Mr. Coleman, need from council?
No, just wrap up. Like I mentioned, we'll get all of the changes that we've discussed today and over the past few weeks published on Wednesday. We'll wrap up that comment period on the 11th and get the comments to the city council by Saturday at least, and or Friday night more likely, and then hopefully we can act on the comp plan and development regulations on December 15th.
All right. I don't think there's any objection from council on that. All right. Thank you, Mr. Coleman and team. All right, we are going to move on to item 6F. This is ordinance 5009, 2026 operating budget. This is a discussion item with possible action. And I will mention that item 6G is capital facilities plan. So should council adopt these, I believe they have to be adopted together. But it's a discussion with possible action and open for public comment. And I may have stalled long enough, Mr. Hoagland, for you to get your presentation up. So whenever you're ready.
Well done, Mayor. Thank you. Members of the council, members of the audience. So bringing this back tonight, again, kind of a reminder, our operating budget and capital facilities plan. Well, the capital facilities plan needs to be adopted in conjunction with the operating budget. So we have both those ordinances back for your consideration tonight. We have met our notice requirements, public hearing requirements, and I believe we've answered council's questions. So I wanted to present the ordinance is tonight and offer to answer any questions council might have, if there's additional follow-up we can do, or entertain a motion.
All right, maybe I'll see if any member of the public wants to weigh in at this point, either on the budget or the comprehensive plan, or sorry, the capital facilities plan. Had comp plan on my mind. Okay, council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
So unless anyone else up here has any significant changes or information to bring forward, and provided we are capturing what Ms. Cleland McGrath mentioned a couple meetings ago about keeping track of where we're going financially. So there's a few line items in our budget. I know we've talked about the school resource officer, some other things that we may want to shift around as long as we're all watching that. Then I move that we approve the 2026 budget as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini and a second by Mr. Young to approve ordinance 5009, 2026 operating budget. Additional discussion.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I think that we should take every opportunity we can to talk about the fact that we are in a period of declining revenue, of general revenue. Our general revenue is declining, mostly because of property tax, which doesn't increase at the same rate as inflation. Property tax is the largest component of our three general revenue streams. If we don't see sales tax that grows at a much faster rate than inflation, or utility tax that grows at a much faster rate than inflation, we will be in the same position we are now at the end of next year and then the year after that. So that will require us to pull on whatever levers we can in 2026. It will require us to try to conserve expenses, avoid expenses, but also importantly, find other sources of revenue, improve economic activity so there's more sales tax revenue. We're going to have to do things differently because I think we all do not want to be in the position that we are in this year, that we are next year, even if that's quite likely because you don't turn these things around in 1 year. And a lot of the components of these problems are maybe completely outside of our control. It's just not a pretty picture, and I don't want us to have any kind of Goldilocks, Alice in Wonderland, pick your metaphor view of the budget situation. When we talk about the CFP, we've moved a lot of projects in the CFP to be REIT funded, which will work next year, but then it won't work in 2027 even, unless we see a lot more REIT coming in the door. So obviously, I'm not saying anything council doesn't already know, but I think it's really important to repeat for the public and to repeat for all staff that sort of have somewhat unavoidable hard times ahead, and we need to be laser focused on correcting these financial problems before we can do anything else.
Well said. Okay, still a motion by, sorry, I already gave an opportunity for public. I've got to go through this legal process first. I'll give you an opportunity to comment on the capital facilities plan. Okay, Mr. Franciac, I've got a motion by Mr. Fantini and a second by Mr. Young for ordinance 5009, 2026 operating budget. Would you take the vote, please?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so 6G is the companion with that. And again, I apologize. I thought I saw everybody that wanted to comment. But council has to do their job at some point. Okay, Mr. Hoagland.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So yeah, the capital facilities plan that essentially, I mean, it's a separate budget altogether, but the current year, 2026, those capital projects do flow into our operating budget. And then, as I mentioned, has to be adopted in conjunction with the operating plan.
Okay, now I will ask if anybody wants to comment on please come on up on the capital facilities plan. And please state your name and city. Right.
Teresa Baker, Anacortes. This isn't about the capital facilities plan, and I was a little surprised that public comment came up so quickly before I actually saw anything, but I was just looking at the draft budget for next year online, and I just glanced at it, and I saw all sorts of things that the drug money is going to be going towards that has already been discussed in council. And I thought next, like the funding for the police officer in the school, like the training facility in Oak Harbor. So I was surprised to see that listed as part of the draft budget for next year. So I just want to say that I have been all along thinking that the drug money should be used for the purpose that it's intended for, which is to service, drug rehabilitation. So I think it's totally inappropriate that it's being used as other things, especially a police training facility in Oak Harbor, which is a good idea, but it shouldn't come out of the draft, out of the monies. So I'm just commenting on the draft budget.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, council did have that debate, and the Oak Harbor facility is not part of that. And next week we will be bringing a resolution before council to clarify the opioid funding. So that's on the first. All right, Mr. Hoagland, back to you.
So unless there are any other questions or concerns, thoughts that council has regarding the CFP, that's all the material I have for you, but happy to answer other questions you may have.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
So just to reiterate, the police training facility money is not in either the budget or the CFP.
That's correct. And I'm happy to follow up after.
And it's not funded by opioid money or any other funding.
Nor, correct.
Okay. It seems to me that there are quite a few projects in 2026 that are REIT funded. And maybe there might be some opportunity to move some of that funding to later years to preserve some of it. Or possibly to move it to some projects that are receiving general revenue. There aren't any. I think there are 0 capital projects in 2026 that are receiving any general revenue. I looked through a couple of times. I don't think there are any. Is that consistent with your recollection?
The one down at the water, the project, the piling project. I think. I think that's
maybe that
one
one. Sure. Yeah, because there's no other revenue source for that.
Piling removal project.
Yeah,
yes.
I believe that's the only one.
I think so. Yeah, so not a lot of options here, but except to maybe not pursue a couple of the projects, but then that only saves, it more or less only saves REIT, which has limited usefulness. Also because it comes up, some of these projects, almost all of these projects, with the exception of the piling, are funded by restricted revenue sources. So they can't, you'll see a capital project occur in 2026, but it's not as if we could have avoided that project and then put that money into a library or staffing generally, which is simply a consequence of the state law constraints on how we spend various sums of money. So I think that's important to reiterate as many times as we can as well.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young.
No, I just wanted to sort of piggyback on what Mr. Walters has said, and the effort put forward by the city itself in order to do the best that we can with what we have. The reality is where we are right now, but the truth of the matter is that although disappointed in what we have to do, I'm I'm just appreciative for the people that we have at the table and the hard work that went in, not only by the mayor and the team, to try to make the best possible choices we can with what we have. I think that cannot be understated. Because part of the mission in going forward, as we transition to another administration, as this continues to lead us forward in how we approach what use of dollars that we do have, reminding the public that our best effort truly is trying to make sure that we're doing the best that we can with what we have to give the most service to the people of Anacortes in the level of service that they're accustomed to. So, really at this point, I also just really wanted to say thank you because I know it wasn't easy. And I just want you guys to know how much we appreciate the hard work that went into it. Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, just very quickly, I would like to echo the thoughts of both Mr. Young and Mr. Walters. Thank you for making the statements. And yeah, when it comes to revenue, like basically sales tax, property tax, and the utility tax, those are the only ones that have no restrictions on them, as far as I know. So all other sources of revenue, like the real estate excise tax and the lodging tax, we can use for capital projects or projects that say promote like tourism and business development. That's the lodging tax. So things like the event center, that is a funding source that we cannot spend on salaries or people. So we'll spend it on a project that we hope generates essentially like economic development, which generates sales tax to be able to, that then is unrestricted funds that we can spend on programs and people. So thanks for making the point, and I just wanted to reiterate it. Thanks.
And I know it's been said a lot of times how challenging this budget was to put together, but I will say there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Things like the economic development that will come with an event center and our Anacortes Access Fiber. That will generate unrestricted funds in the future because that's how council set it up. That it would not be its own utility. So there's some, we've got to get through a challenging time and everything's been stated already, but I think we'll have an opportunity to get there. So, all right, but council will still need a motion perhaps on the capital facilities plan.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
So again, because it might be a little bit of a unexpected thing for the city to engage in capital projects when we have a budget condition like this, we should fully expect to pursue capital projects like South Commercial, as Mr. McDougall had pointed out. Of course, we've been working on that for years and have not made it through washed-out approval, but to the extent that there's any capital project that can help improve economic activity, that can help the general condition of the budget. So we should expect to pursue those, whether they're in this plan or the next version of this plan. That's the type of thing that we really need to focus on to generate more revenue without raising taxes. I move approval of the capital facilities plan as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Ms. Hubick to approve ordinance 5010. 2026-2031 capital facilities plan. Additional discussion. Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much for the work, staff, council. With no further